Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it is that small, frightened shadow of yourself that clings to comfort B, while destiny is waiting on the other side of courage. I have seen people stand in the very presence of greatness and walk away unchanged. Why? Because they carried a lesser version of themselves. They bowed to it. They believed it. There comes a time in every person's life when they are confronted not by the world around them, but by the version of themselves they've allowed to survive for too long. This version is not the true self. It is not the self that dares to believe, to move forward, to take up space in the world with strength and certainty. It is the smaller self, the weaker self. The one that hides behind excuses and wounds, behind past rejections and present insecurities. It whispers constantly, saying, "You can't. You're not ready. You're not enough." It cloaks itself in humility, but it is fear in disguise. It pretends to protect, but it only prevents. And if you allow it to stay, it will steal every chance at becoming who you were truly meant to be. The weaker self is not evil. It's familiar. It grew with you. It was born in pain, in survival, in the moments you felt unseen or unworthy. And so, for a season it may have kept you safe. But now it has become the very thing holding you hostage. It refuses to grow. It resists risk. It cannot dream beyond what it has already experienced. And if you listen to it long enough, you will start to believe its version of reality, that this is all you'll ever be, that greatness is for others, that transformation is for someone else's story. But this is not truth. It's just a tired narrative that's been repeated in your mind for too long. And until you recognize that voice, until you face it without flinching, you cannot silence it. The weaker self must die, not because it is hateful, but because it is in the way. It's the reason you shrink in rooms you are called to lead in. It's why you sabotage opportunities and delay your calling with excuses that feel valid but are rooted in fear. It's the self that tells you to wait until you feel ready, when readiness is found only in action. This version of you cannot go where you are called to go. It lacks the vision, the stamina, and the heart. It wants comfort, not growth. It seeks approval, not purpose. And every time you allow it to make decisions, you forfeit a piece of your future. Killing this version of yourself is not a single moment. It's a daily refusal. A refusal to bow to fear. A refusal to remain silent when your voice is needed. A refusal to choose mediocrity because excellence feels hard. It is the quiet, brutal work of self-confrontation. It is looking in the mirror and refusing to let the old stories define what's possible now. It is the decision to disappoint your past in order to become loyal to your future. It's painful, because that old version of you feels safe. But safety is not destiny. Safety doesn't change lives. And deep down, you know you are made for more than safety. This is why the weaker self must die. Not as an act of violence, but as an act of release. You are not that voice in your head. You are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not the small opinions others have of you, or the even smaller ones you've had of yourself. There is something greater within, something deeper that knows what you are capable of, but it will not force its way forward. It waits for you to choose. It waits for you to clear the space. And that means letting the weaker self fall away, not with hatred, not with regret, but with clarity and authority. Comfort is one of the most deceptive enemies of transformation. It comes wrapped in warmth, in routine, in familiarity. It whispers promises of peace and safety, and it lulls us into believing that staying where we are is somehow better than stepping into the unknown. It makes the present bearable, even if it's not purposeful. It makes stagnation feel like stability. But the truth is, nothing remarkable, nothing revolutionary, nothing worthy of legacy has ever come from comfort. Comfort breeds complacency. It numbs the hunger for growth. It softens the voice of purpose until it is barely a whisper beneath the noise of convenience. The human spirit was not designed for stillness. It was created to stretch, to seek to evolve. Deep within every soul is a desire to become more than we've been, more than we were told we could be. But the path to becoming is paved with resistance, not ease. It demands discomfort. It demands shedding layers of who we've been to uncover who we truly are. And that process is never comfortable. That process tears at ego, challenges assumptions, and exposes weakness. That process demands more than the bare minimum. And yet, so many choose to stay in their comfort zone because it feels safer than facing what growth requires. Comfort is seductive. It offers rest before the work is finished. It convinces us that we've already done enough, already given enough, already changed enough. It makes us feel justified in staying small. It turns potential into a fantasy instead of a mandate. And the longer you stay there, the more you begin to lose the edge, the fire, the drive that once stirred your soul. You stop pushing boundaries. You stop risking rejection. You stop asking bigger questions. You settle into the rhythm of survival and call it peace. But it is not peace, it is quiet surrender. There is a cost to comfort. It doesn't seem like it at first. It feels like a reprieve, a reward. But the cost reveals itself slowly. In missed opportunities, in unexplored potential, in the ache of regret that lingers in the background of easy choices. The dreams you once held begin to fade. The urgency to change dulls. And before long, you become a version of yourself that is unrecognizable to the part of you that once hoped for more. You begin to accept limits that were never meant to define you. You begin to justify patterns that are slowly stealing your strength. Transformation is not born in ease. It is born in pressure, in challenge, in facing hard truths without running from them. It's forged in the fire of doing what's uncomfortable, what's unfamiliar, what's uncertain. That's where growth happens. That's where change takes root. But it can only begin when you are willing to confront the false peace that comfort offers, when you stop treating convenience like a goal and start treating discipline like a gift. It is not the easiest path, but it is the only one that leads to the future you've been called to build. Every breakthrough demands a departure from the known. You cannot step into a new season while clinging to the ease of the old one. You cannot build something extraordinary from the materials of mediocrity. You cannot carry comfort and transformation in the same hands. One will always require the release of the other. Comfort tells you to stay still, but calling always calls you higher. And calling is always costly. It asks you to trade what feels good now for what's truly worth it later. It asks for your full attention, your full surrender, your full effort. Fear is a master illusionist. It wraps itself in logic, in timing, in false wisdom. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It tells you to wait a little longer, to gather more proof, to be absolutely sure before you move. But underneath all its disguises, fear is a thief. It steals possibilities, delays destiny, and convinces you that survival is better than significance. It feeds off hesitation. It multiplies in silence. And the longer you let it speak unchecked, the more it becomes the voice you believe. You cannot build a future on fear. You cannot construct anything lasting on a foundation that trembles every time something unfamiliar appears. A life built on fear is unstable. It shifts with every opinion, every challenge, every obstacle. Fear never allows deep roots to grow. It won't let you take risks. It won't let you believe in your own potential. It won't let you rise beyond the boundaries it carefully draws around your life. It will always keep you small enough to feel safe and just big enough to pretend you're progressing. Fear has no creative power. It only reacts. It mirrors your wounds, your insecurities, your memories of failure, and turns them into reasons not to try again. It remembers every no and forgets every yes. It highlights your limits and hides your strengths, and it always speaks in absolutes. Always, never, can't, won't. Its language is scarcity. Its rhythm is hesitation. It clouds your judgment and makes you question things you once knew in your soul. And if you're not careful, you begin to shape your identity around it. Not just what you do, but who you believe you are. The tragedy is not that fear exists. It always will. The tragedy is when fear is given authority. When it becomes the advisor, the gatekeeper, the architect of your decisions. You stop taking steps forward and start circling the same ground, over and over, calling it wisdom or timing or patience. But it's not patience. It's paralysis. Fear and control does not delay disaster. It guarantees it in a different form. It doesn't always destroy with chaos. Sometimes it destroys by dulling the fire inside until it barely flickers at all. The future requires faith, and faith and fear cannot occupy the same space for long. One will always drive out the other. Faith builds, fear freezes. Faith sees what could be. Fear fixates on what might go wrong. Faith says try. Fear says hide. Faith trusts process. Fear demands proof. And though fear might feel more familiar, only faith has the strength to lay a foundation strong enough to support transformation. You must choose which voice will build your future, because both cannot speak at the same time. To grow, to evolve, to walk into the next version of yourself, you must confront fear. Not deny it, not pretend it's not there, but face it. You must speak truth in its direction. You must act in spite of its tremble. You must decide that what's ahead of you is more important than what's trying to hold you back. You must give permission to courage, not comfort. Fear will never leave on its own. It must be removed by force, by discipline, by vision, by boldness in action. If you wait until you're no longer afraid to begin, you will never begin. If you wait for fear to disappear before you decide, you'll be waiting the rest of your life. The fear may still speak, but it doesn't get to vote. It doesn't get to plan. It doesn't get to shape your story. You were not created to be ruled by fear. You were not designed to build a life with hesitation as your blueprint. Every moment spent obeying fear is a moment lost to purpose. Every delay is ground surrendered. Every excuse is a seed of regret. You were not created for smallness. Deep within your being, there is a capacity that stretches far beyond what you've seen. far beyond what others have spoken over you, far beyond the labels and limits that life may have tried to place on you. You were made in greatness, formed with intention, built for something that demands your full strength, your full presence, your full voice. And yet, so many live confined to a fraction of their potential, as though they were designed to simply exist, to survive, to take up as little space as possible in a world that desperately needs the fullness of who they are. Smallness is not humility. It's not virtue. It is the result of shrinking over and over again until the soul forgets how to stand tall. It comes when you start believing that your presence is too much, that your dreams are too big, that your voice is too loud, too different, too inconvenient. Smallness creeps in subtly. It disguises itself as politeness, as responsibility, as practicality, but its real agenda is to keep you from becoming. It tells you to stay low, to avoid the spotlight, to blend in, to settle for less because reaching for more feels risky. It whispers that it's safer to be unnoticed than to be seen and misunderstood. But you were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to bury your gifts just because others didn't understand them. The world may reward conformity, but destiny does not. Destiny calls for boldness. It calls for fullness. It calls for the courage to be exactly who you were created to be, even when it doesn't fit the mold. And when you deny that call, when you dim yourself to make others comfortable, when you choose the path of least resistance, you are not protecting yourself. You are postponing the life you were born to live. There is something divine about living in your full stature, not arrogance, not ego, but alignment, standing in the truth of your identity and calling, knowing that you were created to bring light, to bring change, to leave something behind that matters. And you cannot do that by playing small. You cannot fulfill a high calling with a low view of yourself. The capacity is already within you, but it must be activated by belief. You have to believe that your presence carries weight. You have to believe that your voice holds value. You have to believe that your story, your journey, your fire has purpose, even if no one else recognizes it yet. Too often people wait for permission to rise. They wait for someone else to notice them, to validate them, to open a door for them. But the truth is, the door was already there. It just required boldness to walk through it. The gift was already given. It just needed to be unwrapped. The calling was already placed. It just needed to be answered. You cannot wait for others to confirm what has already been confirmed in your spirit. You must own it. You must step into it. You must carry it with the authority that comes not from applause, but from knowing you were designed with intention. Smallness will always feel easier in the moment, but it becomes heavier over time. Because deep down, the soul knows when it's not fully alive. It knows when it has more to give. It knows when it's holding back, when it's choosing safety over significance. And that unrest you feel, that quiet frustration, that sense that something is missing, it's not failure, it's the call to expansion, the call to rise, the call to stop waiting for the right moment and realize that the right moment begins when you choose to stand fully in who you are. Letting go of guilt, shame, and old identities is not just emotional release. It is spiritual warfare. These weights are subtle captors. They do not chain your hands, but they chain your decisions. They do not silence your voice entirely, but they dull its power. Guilt whispers, "You should have known better." Shame insists, "You are no better." And the old identity, the one shaped by failure, rejection, or trauma, says this is who you will always be. These voices do not speak truth, but if unchallenged, they will become the soundtrack of your life. They will define your choices, your confidence, your vision, and your worth. Guilt comes dressed in responsibility. It pretends to be noble. It says if you carry the weight long enough, maybe it will earn you redemption. Maybe if you punish yourself long enough, you'll deserve freedom. But guilt is a counterfeit teacher. It teaches cycles, not growth. It teaches self-punishment, not healing. And while it may keep you aware of your past, it also keeps you tethered to it. There is a difference between conviction and guilt. Conviction says, a change because you were made for more. Guilt says, stay stuck because you'll never be more. A shame is even crueler. Shame doesn't accuse what you've done. It attacks who you are. It moves from action to identity. It takes one mistake and turns it into a mirror. It makes your reflection unbearable. You begin to view your story only through the lens of what went wrong. You forget the victories. You discount the beauty. You rewrite your own narrative with dark ink and believe that redemption is a privilege reserved for someone stronger, cleaner, better. But shame is a liar. It has no creativity. It only repeats your worst moments on loop until you mistake them for truth. The old identity, born from survival, often feels familiar, even comforting. You've worn it for so long, you don't recognize it as a limitation. Maybe you've identified as the failure, the abandoned one, the overlooked, the angry one, the broken one, the invisible one. And even when something in your spirit says there's more, that voice is drowned by the echoes of who you used to be. People may even reinforce it, expecting you to act, speak, and react like the version of you they once knew. But growth will demand that you disappoint the expectations people have of your past. You cannot build a future while living in a name that no longer belongs to you. Letting go is not forgetting. It is choosing to no longer be defined by what has already passed. It is the bold act of saying, I am not what I did. I am not what was done to me. I am not the product of that season, that decision, that pain. It is stepping away from the identity that was forged in pain and stepping into the identity that was designed in purpose. It requires grief. It requires courage. But mostly, it requires trust. That who you are becoming is more real than who you were pretending to be. When you let go of guilt, you make room for grace. When you let go of shame, you create space for joy. When you release the old identity, you finally have the hands free to build something new. This is not self-help. This is self-liberation. It is not easy work, but it is sacred work. The future does not open itself to the one who clings to the past. You cannot carry healing and hurt in the same heart forever. One must make room for the other, and you must choose which one you will live with. True identity is forged in fire, not ease. The version of you that can carry the weight of purpose, that can stand in storms without crumbling, that can speak when others fall silent. That version is not created in the moments where everything feels good, predictable, and safe. It is born in the moments that break your pride, stretch your faith, and challenge every false belief you've held about who you are. Ease reveals very little about character. Fire reveals everything. Fire exposes what is real and what is merely performance. It burns away illusion, forcing you to confront not just what you present to the world, but what you actually carry within. You do not truly know your strength until it is tested. You do not truly know your conviction until it is pressed. You do not know your voice until it must rise above the sound of chaos and fear, the fire of hardship, of loss, of rejection, of uncertainty. It doesn't destroy identity, it uncovers it. It separates the imitation from the authentic. The mask falls off in fire. The roles you've played to keep peace or gain approval melt away. The identity shaped by other people's expectations can't survive it. Only the true, enduring self can walk through fire and come out refined rather than consumed. The world often teaches you to chase comfort and validation, to curate an identity that looks appealing rather than one that is anchored. But surface identity has no roots. It shakes when the ground shifts. It crumbles under criticism. It dissolves when approval fades. Real identity, identity that carries weight, influence, and destiny, is not shaped by applause but by a pressure. You don't become who you are in the spotlight. You become who you are when no one is watching, when nothing is guaranteed, when everything inside you is being tested by trial and still you choose to show up with integrity. There is a cost to authenticity. It requires walking through fire that not everyone is willing to face. It means giving up the need to be liked in exchange for being true. It means allowing what is false to fall apart so that what is real can be rebuilt. Most people are more comfortable with a pleasing lie than a painful truth. But you cannot live free and lie to yourself at the same time. You cannot step into power while pretending to be someone smaller. The fire burns away the false so that you can see clearly who you've been all along. Identity forged in ease is fragile. It depends on circumstances. But identity forged in fire becomes unshakable. Because when you have walked through pain and not lost your purpose, when you have been rejected and still chosen to believe, when you have failed and still gotten back up, you become immovable. You no longer need external validation because you carry internal clarity. You no longer bend to every opinion because you know who you are apart from them. You no longer second-guess your worth because it is no longer up for debate. It has been proven in fire. You cannot avoid the fire and still claim the reward of transformation. You cannot skip the suffering and expect the strength. The most powerful people are not those who have never fallen. They are those who learned who they were in the fall. They didn't curse the fire. They submitted to it. They let it do its work. They let it reveal what mattered. They let it strip away the unnecessary, the surface, the shallow. And what was left was something pure. Something tested, something eternal. The journey to your true self will take you through fire, not around it. It is not a detour. It is the path. And what emerges on the other side is not a copy of someone else, not a version made for pleasing others, but the real you. The one who can carry your calling with courage and conviction. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. It is the unseen structure that holds transformation together when motivation fades and emotions waver. Anyone can have a dream, anyone can feel inspired for a moment, but it is discipline that carries you when the inspiration is gone. It is not loud or flashy. It does not crave attention or applause. Discipline does its work in the quiet, in the mundane, in the moments no one else sees. And that is where the new version of you is built. Not in the spotlight, but in secret. In the habits you choose when no one is watching. In the decisions you make when giving up feels easier. In the way you train your mind, your body, your heart to respond to challenge with strength instead of retreat. Discipline does not ask how you feel. It asks what you committed to. It is the refusal to let your emotions dictate your direction. It's waking up early when comfort says stay in bed. It's pushing forward when resistance meets you at every step. It's saying no to what's convenient in order to say yes to what's necessary. And in a world that idolizes comfort and glorifies ease, discipline will make you stand out. It will make you misunderstood. But it will also make you unbreakable, because while others wait for ideal conditions, discipline creates results in every condition. The process of rebuilding yourself will demand more than inspiration. It will require structure. It will require consistency. It will require an unwavering yes that survives seasons of disappointment, fatigue, and doubt. You cannot become a stronger version of yourself by only acting when you feel strong. You become stronger by choosing discipline in your weakest moments, by building systems that support your vision, even when your emotions don't. This is how legacies are built, not on fleeting bursts of energy, but on the long obedience in the same direction. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom in disguise. It is the ability to govern your own life instead of being governed by impulse or circumstance. It is the voice inside that says, I will not quit just because it got hard. Discipline gives you power over time. It compounds small efforts into great change. It builds trust in yourself, because you learn that you are not at the mercy of feeling. You are anchored by commitment. You become someone you can rely on. And that changes everything. Most people overestimate what they can do in a short burst and underestimate what they can do through daily discipline. Small decisions made consistently become powerful shifts. One step, taken again and again, becomes momentum. And momentum, fueled by discipline, becomes transformation. There will be days when progress feels invisible. There will be days when the breakthrough seems far. But those are the exact days that discipline matters most. Because in those moments you are not just building habits. You are building identity. You are becoming the kind of person who shows up regardless of the outcome. Rebuilding yourself requires more than vision boards and declarations. It requires systems, habits, patterns that reflect the future you want to create. Your life moves in the direction of your dominant disciplines. If your discipline is distraction, your future will be delayed. If your discipline is diligence, your future will be accelerated. You cannot become who you're meant to be while still living by the patterns of who you were. Every new level of life demands a new level of discipline. This is the cost of becoming. Not just dreaming but doing. Not just hoping but showing up. Not just feeling ready, but being ready because you've prepared in private. Discipline is the daily choice to act in alignment with your destiny, even when your surroundings haven't changed yet. It is the most underestimated form of power you can wield. And it is available to anyone willing to choose it, again and again, until who used to be no longer fits the life you are building. Keynote No. 7 expanded 600 words gauge. Discipline is the architecture of transformation. It is not glamorous, it is not loud, and it is rarely applauded, but it is the framework that holds up the future you are trying to build. People chase motivation, waiting for the right feeling to move, the right atmosphere to act, the right inspiration to begin. But motivation is fleeting. It's a spark, not a foundation. Discipline is the bricklayer. It shows up when the feelings fade. It does the work in silence. It chooses consistency over intensity. It does not chase excitement. It builds structure. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. It is the daily refusal to surrender to impulse. It is waking up when it's easier to stay asleep. It's creating when it's easier to consume. It's saying no to what numbs you and yes to what stretches you. Discipline doesn't care about how you feel in the moment. It is committed to what you said when you were clear, when you were focused, when you were in alignment. Discipline keeps its promise, even when you no longer feel like keeping yours. Many want the result of transformation without the rigor of it. They want the elevation without the process. They want breakthrough without obedience. But growth is not magic. It is the result of seeds planted again and again, watered with faithfulness, even when the ground looks barren. It's the act of showing up. Not perfectly, but persistently. There will be days where inspiration is absent, when strength feels low, when clarity seems distant. On those days, discipline takes the lead. It says, this is who we are now. And it acts in agreement with the future, not the feelings. Discipline rewires the mind. Every repeated action is a message to your identity. Every habit you reinforce is shaping your story. When you choose discipline, you're not just managing behavior. You're building belief. You're training your soul to expect more, to withstand more, to produce more. You're transforming not just your outcomes, but your mindset. And once the mind changes, the life will follow. There is no such thing as transformation without repetition. And there is no such thing as repetition without discipline. It is the secret ingredient to every great life. Not talent, not chance, not luck. Discipline is what separates the dreamers from the builders. It is what makes potential become legacy. And the truth is, everyone is disciplined in something. The question is not whether you're disciplined. The question is what you're disciplined in. Are you disciplined in self-doubt, in excuses, in comparison? Or are you disciplined in truth, in action, in growth? You are practicing something every day, and that practice is forming the rhythm of your life. Discipline trains the heart to endure what the mind wants to escape. It teaches you how to walk when running is impossible. It teaches you how to work when no one is watching. It removes the drama, the delay, the dependency on circumstance. It says, this is the mission. And it moves forward regardless of mood. The world will give you 1,000 reasons to pause, to delay, to abandon your progress. But discipline gives you one reason to keep going: the call, the vision, the knowing that who you're becoming is worth the sacrifice. Nothing beautiful is built in convenience. The cathedral of character, the fortress of faith, the monument of maturity, all of it is constructed in moments of quiet, repetitive, obedient action. Discipline is not a punishment. It is a gift. It is how you partner with your purpose. It is how you honor the greatness within you. It is how you rise when the old version of you would have stayed stuck. You will not drift into destiny. You will walk there. Step by step, choice by choice, moment by moment, with discipline as your guide. Your environment shapes your endurance, your energy, your identity. What surrounds you is either feeding your future or draining your strength. You cannot become new while living in an atmosphere that only remembers the old you. You cannot think differently while living inside the same patterns, the same conversations, the same atmosphere of doubt or mediocrity. The people you allow access to your mind and your time are shaping what you believe is possible. You may have a powerful vision, but if your environment is rooted in fear, distraction, or stagnation, that vision will wither. Atmosphere carries weight. Every room you walk into is speaking something to you. Some rooms speak peace, clarity, momentum. Others speak comparison, anxiety, insecurity. And sometimes it's not the place. It's the people. People who remind you of who you used to be. People who make you feel small when you speak big. People who have settled in their own lives and secretly resent your hunger for more. And if you stay too long in an environment that is not aligned with your transformation, you will either begin to conform to it or start to doubt yourself. Elevation often requires separation, not because you are better, but because you are becoming. You are not leaving people behind, you are moving forward. And not everyone is meant to go with you. Some people were assigned to your past, not your future. Some conversations were only meant for a season. Some atmospheres are only safe when you're asleep. But when you start to awaken, when you start to stretch, when you start to demand more of yourself, you have to take inventory of what's around you. You don't plant seeds in dry soil and expect a harvest. You don't water flowers with poison and expect them to bloom. And you cannot expect to thrive in an environment that constantly contradicts your growth. Your atmosphere should challenge you, inspire you, call you higher. It should breathe life into your ideas, not suffocate them. It should reinforce your values, not erode them. You don't need an environment that entertains you. You need one that builds you. That may mean changing the conversations you allow. That may mean turning down the noise of social input. That may mean walking away from circles that only tolerate you but never celebrate the calling on your life. The right environment doesn't flatter your ego. It refines your purpose. It doesn't coddle your wounds. It helps you heal. It doesn't pacify your fears. It activates your faith. And until you change what surrounds you, you will keep cycling through the same internal resistance. When you step into the right atmosphere, you feel it. Your creativity ignites. Your spirit lifts. Your thoughts become clear. You feel challenged, but not crushed. You feel seen, but not reduced. It is not always a perfect space, but it is a purposeful one. It calls out the version of you that you are becoming. It demands alignment. And alignment always accelerates growth. You must protect your atmosphere the way a builder protects a foundation. You do not allow just anything to enter. You filter what you hear, what you absorb, what you dwell in. Because what you dwell in, you will eventually dwell as. Your surroundings are not passive. They are prophetic. They are shaping what you normalize. They are deciding what becomes acceptable to your soul. And when you finally get serious about your transformation, you will get just as serious about your environment. You were never meant to live as a fraction of yourself, the weak version, the one molded by fear, guilt, comfort, and compromise, has had its time, but that time is over. What stands before you now is a sacred invitation to rise, to rebuild, to reclaim the parts of you that have been buried under disappointment, silence, and survival. This is not about perfection. It is about permission. Permission to become. Permission to evolve. Permission to be fierce in pursuit of the life you were created for. The fire will come. The cost will be high, but so is the calling. And if you will dare to let go, to step out, to speak up, and to stand firm, you will see a version of yourself you've only glimpsed in moments of clarity. A version that does not beg for space but creates it. A version that is disciplined, whole, and unshakable. Kill the weak version, lay it down, and build in its place someone who walks in truth, who breathes with purpose, and who lives fully, freely, and without apology.